Something unexpected happens when you stop trying to force the timeline to open and start allowing the rhythm of your own body to lead. The moment you release that mental pressure to picture what you think should arrive, your field stops scattering, your breath settles, and the static inside your chest begins to dissolve. And as the nervous system no longer compares where you are to where you wish you were, a different signal emerges, quiet, coherent, and unmistakably aligned. The first thing you need to understand about delay is that it is not a cosmic punishment. It is not the universe putting you on hold because you did something wrong. Delay, in the language of energy, is what happens when reality refuses to lock onto a signal that is still fragmented, still unstable, still divided inside your own system. When you ask for something with your mind while your body is broadcasting the opposite frequency, the field does not say yes or no. It pauses, it waits, it holds the probability open without collapsing it, because there is too much static in the channel. Your nervous system is still bracing, your breath is still shallow, your chest is still quietly tightened around an outcome it does not actually feel safe to receive. That is why so many of your manifestations seem to hover around you but never fully land. You visualize the relationship, but your stomach knots every time you imagine true intimacy. You visualize abundance, but your shoulders clench when money comes too close. Outwardly, you are asking for expansion, but inwardly your body is preparing for loss, for disappointment, for overload. The field can only mirror what is coherent, never what is conflicted. Here is the part nobody tells you. Delay does not start in the outer timeline. Delay begins in the microseconds where your mind surges ahead and your body falls behind. Your cells are asking silent questions the mind refuses to hear. Have we felt this before? Was it safe last time? Will we lose ourselves if this actually arrives? Most people interpret that pause as rejection, so they push harder with the mind. They visualize more, script more, control more, and with every extra layer of mental effort, the body tightens its grip a little further. Breath becomes a little more restricted. The nervous system moves a little deeper into surveillance mode. The channel gets noisier, not clearer. This is why you can do everything right on paper and still feel like you are walking through honey. You repeat the affirmation. You sit in front of your vision board and try to feel grateful in advance. But somewhere in your chest there is a subtle flinch. Somewhere in your diaphragm there is a micro brace. Somewhere in your gut there is a memory of when it did not work, when it hurt, when it collapsed. The universe is not withholding, it is recalibrating. Delay is not the field turning away from you. It is the field refusing to fuse your future to a fractured signal. It will not crystallize timelines that would tear your system apart. It will not cement realities that your body is still coding as threat. So instead of asking, why is nothing happening? The real question becomes, what static is the universe refusing to amplify? Where is your body still arguing with your desire? Where is your breath still negotiating with your expansion? Where are you secretly rehearsing loss, while you consciously rehearse receiving? When you begin to see delay through this lens, it stops feeling like sense and starts feeling like precision. Outdated identities loosen their hold. The universe is not saying no, it is asking. Can this version of you hold what you're asking for without fragmenting again? Delay is the nervous system's opportunity window. It is the stretch where your body learns that safety is not found in shrinking, but in staying. Staying with the sensation of possibility, staying with the rising charge of more life, staying with the warmth of being chosen, supported, provided for. As that learning lands in your tissue, the static thins, the signal clears. When you honor delay as a phase of energetic reconfiguration rather than a verdict, Your entire posture toward the universe changes. You stop begging and start listening. You stop gripping and start attuning. You stop reading every pause as abandonment and start recognizing it as alignment in progress. And it is from that place where mind and body finally begin to speak the same language. That reality can approach you without needing to slow down anymore. The real breakthrough happens the moment you understand that manifestation has never been a mental exercise. The mind was never built to generate speed. The mind calculates, recalls, compares. It pulls data from the past, measures risk, and tries to create safety through prediction. That is why it moves slowly. It is processing instead of broadcasting. It is remembering instead of receiving. And every time you rely on imagination alone, you're asking the slowest part of your system to do the job that only the body can do. Because the body doesn't imagine. The body signals. The body emits. The body communicates with the quantum field in real time through breath, posture, electrochemical tone. This is why a single shift in your chest can change an entire timeline faster than 1,000 visualizations. This is why the universe moves the moment your vagus nerve relaxes. Mind imagines slowly. Body broadcasts instantly. Here is the part most people never learn. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain you use to visualize, is brilliant at constructing images, but terrible at producing coherence. It can hold a picture of abundance while the rest of your nervous system contracts in fear. It can picture a future relationship while your diaphragm tightens against vulnerability. It can dream expansion while your tissues still expect collapse. That split creates static. Static slows the signal. Static distorts the frequency you think you are sending out. But the vagus nerve does the opposite. When the vagus softens, when breath begins to drop into the lower ribs, when the belly loosens and the shoulders melt, your system enters coherence without needing a single image. That coherence is what the field mirrors. Not the storyboard in your head, not the fantasy your mind constructs. Coherence, presence, availability. A body that is open instead of bracing. A heart that is receptive instead of guarded. A chemistry that is signaling safety instead of survival. This is why the fastest manifestations often happen at the strangest times during a long exhale. After a moment of surrender, in the quiet after you stop forcing yourself to feel inspired. Because the field responds to the frequency beneath your thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. It mirrors your regulation, not your imagination. It reacts to your identity, not your wish list. And identity lives in the body far more deeply than in the mind. So the question becomes, which part of you is leading the signal? The part that's remembering old outcomes or the part that can feel the present moment without collapsing into the past? The mind asks. Is this familiar? Is this safe? Will this repeat what happened before? The body, once regulated, says, this moment is new, this moment is open, this moment is available. When that shift happens, your field stops contradicting itself. Your energy stops splitting. The signal becomes direct, clean, unmistakable. Here's the surprising part. You don't need to feel high vibe for this shift to happen. You don't need fireworks, euphoria, exaggerated gratitude. You only need spaciousness. You only need neutrality. You only need enough openness in your chest and softness in your breath for the signal to stop fragmenting. That state does not require effort. It requires honesty. It requires letting your body catch up to what your mind is asking for. And once the body catches up, manifestation stops being a chase. It becomes a collapse of probability into the version of you that feels coherent. Field never reacts to image. It reacts to identity. And when your identity is embodied rather than imagined, the universe no longer has to slow down to match you. It can move at the speed of your coherence, which is always faster than the speed of your thoughts. And here is the part nobody tells you. The reason this new method moves 10 times faster is not because it forces the universe to hurry. It's because it removes the internal drag you didn't even realize you were creating. Most people think manifestation is slow because reality is slow, but the slowness lives inside them. It lives in the micro-tension their mind generates every time it tries to push the body somewhere it cannot yet follow. Mind pushes, body contracts, field delays. This is the oldest pattern on the planet, and almost everyone is caught in it. The mind forms an image of what it wants: clarity, abundance, connection, direction. But the body, still carrying the chemistry of old timelines, tightens around the possibility. Breath lifts, chest narrows, the diaphragm stiffens as if expansion is a risk rather than a doorway. And the field reads that contraction as mixed signal. Every mixed signal slows the collapse of probability, not because the universe is hesitant, but because it refuses to mirror confusion. A fragmented frequency cannot stabilize a new timeline. A divided nervous system cannot anchor a coherent future. So the field waits. It holds the outcome in suspension, responding not to your intention, but to the tension underneath your intention. And that is why everything feels delayed. Here's the surprising part. Your conscious mind can be utterly convinced that you are ready, while your body is still replaying the residue of every moment when receiving went wrong. The mind says, "Let's move." The body whispers, "What if this hurts again?" The mind reaches for the future. The body curls around the past, and the quantum field mirrors the tug of war instead of the desire. That internal collision is what creates the sensation of stagnation. It's why you try harder, visualize stronger, script longer, yet nothing accelerates. The harder the mind pushes, the more the body braces. The more the body braces, the slower the field responds. You're not being blocked. You're being buffered by your own physiology, your own electromagnetic rhythm being out of sync with your own intention. And here is the part nobody tells you. Speed never comes from the mind. Inspiration comes from the mind. Imagery comes from the mind. But speed, actual energetic velocity, comes from the body when it stops contradicting itself. When your breath widens the ribs instead of gripping them. When your stomach softens instead of collapsing inward. When your chest feels like an opening instead of an armor plate. That coherence is what the field locks onto with no hesitation. Most people are trying to manifest with a nervous system that is still in surveillance mode. Hyper-alert, hyper-compressed, hyper-identified with the timeline they're trying to leave. And when you do that, the universe can't accelerate anything. It can only match what is stable, not what is imagined, not what is forced, only what is stable. This is why the method you're about to learn works 10 times faster, not because it is louder or more intense or more mentally demanding, but because it bypasses the slowest part of your system entirely. It stops relying on imagery, the thing that drags your past into your future, and it moves straight into identity. Straight into the physiological frequency your field can mirror without distortion. When the body leads, the signal becomes clean. When the signal is clean, probability collapses quickly. When probability collapses quickly, reality rearranges without resistance. This is not magic. This is coherence. This is the physics of alignment. A regulated system sends a directive the universe can respond to immediately. The invitation now is simple. Notice how often your mind surges ahead while your body lags behind. Notice the micro brace in your ribs, the subtle contraction in your throat, the quiet clench in your gut. These are the places where your future is being slowed, not by fate, not by timing, but by the parts of you still unsure if expansion is safe. And the moment you learn how to dissolve that contradiction, your timeline stops dragging. It begins to unfold with a precision that feels impossible to the mind but natural to the body. So the real question becomes if speed comes from internal coherence, not external effort. How do you enter the state that removes delay entirely? The concept you are about to learn is the hinge between slow manifestation and quantum-level acceleration. It is called the zero-image state, and it matters because it frees you from the very mechanism that has been slowing you down. The belief that you must create a mental picture in order to create a new reality. The zero-image state is not the absence of desire. It is the absence of distortion. It is the moment the body becomes a clean channel, a tuning fork that vibrates with such coherence that the field has no choice but to mirror it immediately. The first thing to understand is this zero image does not mean emptiness. It does not mean lack, waiting, or void. It means clarity without narrative. It means identity without storytelling. It means you are no longer trying to visualize a future from a past conditioned mind. Instead, you drop into a state where your chest opens, your breath softens, your nervous system quiets, and your energy becomes a single undivided frequency. In this state, there is no friction, no contradiction, no mental story competing with the body's truth. The signal becomes pure. Here is the part nobody tells you. Images slow you down. Narratives overload the prefrontal cortex. Stories trigger memory, comparison, anticipation. The moment you try to craft a picture, your mind begins pulling data from old timelines, old failures, old emotional residues, and the signal fractures. Your field receives not the image itself, but the static beneath the image, the uncertainty, the pressure, the unspoken doubt. That is why visualizing harder rarely works. You're feeding the field a divided frequency. Zero image ends that division instantly, because the body cannot imagine. It can only broadcast. And when you bring your system into coherence through breath that moves without gripping, through a chest that feels like an open doorway rather than a shield, through a gut that is no longer bracing for loss, you turn your entire being into a tuning fork, a steady, resonant, unmistakable tone. The quantum field does not mirror pictures. It mirrors tones. It mirrors identity. It mirrors whatever frequency carries the least internal contradiction. And this is why zero image feels like a spiritual technology. It bypasses the mind, bypasses the stories, bypasses the old associative networks that slow your timeline. It moves you directly into the realm of pure state. Think of it like stepping into a room where the air is still. The sound is clean. The channel is uncluttered. Your presence becomes crisp. Your frequency becomes readable. The field locks onto you the way a radio locks onto a strong signal effortlessly, precisely, instantly. Nothing has to be forced. But let's make something absolutely clear. Zero image is not passive. It is not do nothing and hope. It is the highest form of attunement. It is the moment your identity is no longer split between what you want and what you fear. It is the moment your nervous system stops scanning the past and starts resonating with the now. In this state, you don't imagine abundance. You embody the openness that abundance requires. You don't picture love. You dissolve the armor that kept love at a distance. You don't construct the future. You become compatible with it. This is why the zero image state is considered an advanced practice. Most people cling to mental imagery because it feels safe, familiar, controllable. But imagery is training wheels, state is the engine, identity is the signal. And when you step into zero image, you finally understand that manifestation has nothing to do with seeing the future and everything to do with becoming the version of you who can receive it without flinching. That is the doorway. That is the threshold. And once you cross it, nothing in your field moves slowly again. The zero image method unfolds through 5 inner layers. each one dissolving a different form of static in your field. These layers are not steps you perform, they are states your system transitions through when it stops broadcasting from memory and begins broadcasting from coherence. Think of them as the architecture of a clean signal, the internal mechanics of how your body becomes a tuning fork for the timeline that already matches you. The first layer is somatic openness. This is where everything begins because nothing in the quantum field can lock onto you if your body is still bracing. Somatic openness is not about relaxation. It is about receptivity. It is the moment your chest stops narrowing, your diaphragm stops gripping, your breath moves in arcs instead of spikes. The vagus nerve softens its vigilance. Your ribs feel like they widen by a few millimeters. There is a subtle sense of space behind the sternum, like a doorway cracking open. When the body shifts from defense to openness, the field immediately detects the change. A guarded body emits static, an open body emits coherence. This is the first layer because without it, nothing else stabilizes. The second layer is emotional neutrality, not positivity, not high vibration, neutrality. This is the layer most people misunderstand because they assume the universe responds to excitement, intensity, or amplified emotion. It doesn't. The field responds to steadiness. Emotional neutrality is the moment the emotional charge dissolves. The heart stops guarding, the stomach stops clenching, the internal dialogue quiets. It is like being in the eye of a storm still, awake, undivided. In this layer, there is no pushing energy upward, no forcing a mood, no pretending to feel anything. The neutrality itself becomes a coherent frequency. It signals safety to the nervous system and readability to the field. The third layer is micro-expansion. This is the shift most people feel but cannot name. It is the subtle expansion that happens when the body realizes it is no longer in survival mode. It feels like a gentle widening across the collarbones, a softening at the base of the skull, a release in the solar plexus. It is almost nothing, but it changes everything. Micro-expansion tells the field the signal is stabilizing. It is the energetic equivalent of exhaling after years of holding your breath. In this layer, your timeline begins to reorganize. Possibilities that were previously blocked begin to move toward you because your frequency develops spaciousness space for them to land. The fourth layer is temporal disorientation. This is where the mind loses its grip on linear time. The prefrontal cortex stops scanning the past for reference points. The nervous system stops comparing the present moment to old patterns. You no longer track how long it's been, what should have happened, or what you expected. Time feels softer, slower, or strangely irrelevant. This is not dissociation, it is coherence. When you stop anchoring your identity in past timelines, the field can collapse probabilities around your current state. Manifestation accelerates not because you visualize harder, but because your state is no longer entangled with outdated memories. Temporal disorientation is the moment your signal becomes timeless and the field responds instantly to timeless signals. The fifth layer is identity resonance. This is the core. The moment where your body, breath, tone, and presence align into one unified frequency. Identity resonance is not a thought. It is not an affirmation. It is not an image of who you want to become. It is the felt recognition, this is who I am now. And the universe responds only to this layer, not to your visualizations, not to your desires, to your identity. When this layer locks in, the field receives a coherent electromagnetic signature that matches a higher timeline without distortion. The tuning fork effect becomes unmistakable. Life begins moving toward you instead of you pushing toward it. Conversations shift, opportunities cluster. Reality reorganizes because identity resonance is the strongest broadcast a human system can emit. These 5 layers are the inner mechanics of the zero-image method. Somatic, emotional, energetic, temporal, identity, together. They form the architecture of a signal the universe cannot ignore. And when you understand these layers not as theory, but as experience, you begin to realize why images were never the engine. State was, identity was, and now, so are you. When you reach identity resonance, the universe does not simply give you what you want. It reorganizes the timeline beneath your feet. This is the part most people never understand. Manifestation is not the universe delivering an outcome. Manifestation is the universe adjusting probability pathways to match the signal you are broadcasting. And that adjustment has structure. It has physics. It has an order that only becomes visible when your state is coherent enough to perceive it. The delay you think you are experiencing is not resistance. It is synchronization. The field is aligning a timeline that matches your new identity, not your old one. Every timeline has its own frequency band, its own resonance pattern, its own set of events that can only unfold when your state stabilizes at a certain level. When you shift identities, when your body becomes the tuning fork for a new frequency, the universe must collapse the old pathways and open new ones. That collapse feels like delay, but it is precision. It is the universe refusing to mirror static and insisting on waiting until your signal becomes clear enough to anchor a new sequence of probability. Here's the surprising part: timelines do not change when you visualize. They change when your nervous system stops broadcasting contradictions. The universe listens to coherence, not imagination. When your chest is open, your breath steady, your emotional tone neutral, your sense of time softened, your identity unified, the quantum field detects a frequency that belongs to a different timeline than the one you've been living on, and alignment begins. You are not waiting for the universe. The universe is waiting for you to stabilize. This is why things sometimes appear all at once. Clusters, cascades, synchronicities that feel almost too perfectly timed. It's because the moment your frequency locks into a new timeline, the universe can finally mirror you without distortion. Opportunities that were blocked suddenly become available. People who were misaligned drift out. Conversations shift direction. The path clears. You feel yourself moving not by force, but by resonance. The timeline begins to pull you instead of you pushing toward it. The real reason delay happens is because most people oscillate between two identities. The one they prefer and the one their nervous system is still bracing for. This creates a split signal, a mixed frequency. The universe cannot anchor a timeline built on contradiction. It must wait for the signal to become single-pointed, undivided, neutral. This is why the zero-image method works. It removes the oscillation. It quiets the noise. It lets the field read you with absolute clarity. Once clarity is present, the universe moves with speed that feels almost unnatural because you are no longer manifesting with effort. You are manifesting through compatibility, through resonance, through the physics of coherence. And this is where your journey enters a larger dimension. You are no longer working with goals. You are working with timelines. You are no longer asking for outcome. You are asking which version of you the universe should mirror. When you stabilize the identity that your future timeline requires, the timeline stabilizes around you. That is the moment life begins to feel orchestrated, guided, as if the future has already chosen you. You are crossing that threshold now. The doorway is open. The field is listening. The only question left is the one your future self is already asking. How deeply are you willing to stabilize this if you are ready to anchor this identity steady, coherent, Undivided, type the words "my body leads and reality follows," not as a mantra, as a declaration of resonance. And if you want to continue this shift, the next step of your journey is waiting in the Awaken Your Quantum Power ebook and its companion guide, linked for you in the pinned comment, not because you need more knowledge, but because you are ready to move into a timeline that requires you to embody what you now understand.